Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I have a few little tidbits I want to give you ahead of time, and then we'll get into the main topic. And the first thing is this article from the Gateway Pundit was put out on Friday, November 14th, on November 14th on Thursday. And its title is, "It's Happening, President Trump Meets with AG Barr in Oval Office, then delays departure and calls in top aides and communication team." Okay, now, POTUS was supposed to be leaving for the Louisiana Rally, and there were some things going on. The reporters were standing outside waiting, and it says they snapped photos of Barr and Trump during their animated meeting in the White House. And so they could see into the Oval Office a little bit, and they saw them in there. And earlier this week, there were rumblings that the Inspector General's report was going through the final stages before it is released. Inspector General Horowitz has been working on the report for over a year. There were reports late in the summer that Prosecutor John Durham's criminal investigation was delaying the release of the IG report, which I have told you, in my opinion, that is what's going on, because I think he's got to have his indictments ready to go when that IG report is released, or maybe even before. So that's what I think he's working on really hard. The Washington Examiner reporter Steve Nelson reported on President Trump's late departure from the White House following his meeting with AG Barr. We're waiting for Trump to leave the White House. Photographers have snapped pictures of AG Barr speaking with Donald Trump in Oval Office. Will he tell us it was a perfect call? Stay tuned. They had this, and then they had White House counsel Pat Cipollone is also in the Oval with Barr and Trump. They've gotten up now. So these guys were watching. They saw what was going on. Obviously, they couldn't hear what was going on, but they saw. And then President Trump delayed his departure and sat down with Communications Director Stephanie Grisham, Hogan Gidley, and Mulvaney and others. President Trump called in Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and White House counsel Pat Cipollone, as we said. So, yeah, they saw these people going in. Then President Trump and Pat Cipollone entered the private study to talk, which gets a little bit interesting. And Trump did not take questions as he departed White House, delayed by 2 staff meetings visible to press. So you all know that he usually stops and talks to the press before he goes to any of these rallies. He didn't do it this time. And there was something else. I asked if he was concerned about Giuliani talking insurance, if he's thrown under the bus. Trump only waved, so Trump wasn't going to deal with it. Then he left for his Louisiana campaign rally 45 minutes late. So I thought that was interesting, especially on the heels of this talk that Barr gave at the Federalist Society. Okay, I got to tell you folks, this is really good. I will put the link down below, but I'm going to pick out parts of this and show you what he was saying, because this is big. Okay, he basically was setting things up for the authority of the executive branch so that they should not be pushed around by the legislative branch. And the liberal heads are already spinning because of this. If you haven't been on Twitter, you may not have seen it. But yeah, they are weeping and wailing and gnashing their teeth, saying that Barr is representing Trump and he's not representing the United States and he thinks he's Trump's lawyer. Yeah, okay. What I think he's saying is, get ready, folks. Things are about ready to hit the fan. And then I wanted to show you this one. This was about Elise Stefanik, and this was the whole situation. I didn't go through it all, and I thought that I had this, and I included it in the links down below that particular video that I did. So if you watch that video and you didn't see the link, it's there now, but I will put it down in the bottom of this one too, because this is the whole situation. I mean, it takes everything. It shows you all of his posts, and it shows you, and it shows you how she responded. It showed you what else was going on. So this is really nice that they put this together and laid it all out so people could see exactly what was going on. So I think this, is very important. And the reason they attacked her is because she's a strong conservative woman. So anyway, I wanted to show you those and to clarify that. And so let's get down to the real facts, because this is huge, okay? This is a link that the 17th letter of the alphabet gave us. And if you follow him and you saw that, then you probably were wondering when I was going to get to it. Well, I did want to go over it, but there's more to it than that. And I wanted to pull fill in some other things. I still don't have all the answers, but there's a lot that this particular thing puts out. Now, this happened back in 2017, July 24th, actually, is where Chuck Grassley, the man who is noted for writing letters, well, he did write a letter, and he wrote to then Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. It was all about the FARA Act. That's Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, or FARA, whichever way. I usually pronounce it FARA. Media reports suggest that Ukrainian political leadership opposed the candidacy of Donald Trump for president of the United States and worked with a Democratic National Committee consultant, that would be Alexandra Chalupa, to undermine his campaign. This consultant allegedly had various meetings with Ukrainian government officials, including embassy staff, to coordinate the dissemination of incriminating information about Trump campaign officials. So we're going to look at the letter. There's also a hearing. This press release came out on Chuck Grassley's website on July 24th. But on July 26th, they had this hearing that was on FARA and some of the attempts to influence the U.S. elections. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to include the link to this down below. It was supposed to have 2 different panels. They didn't get to the second panel because some Democrat, and we don't know who it is, at least not at this time, they didn't know, and so I haven't been able to research and find out who it was, but somebody invoked this thing called the 2-hour rule, which kept them from doing the entire thing that they wanted, and the second panel had a guy on it who had come back from overseas to talk to them about FARA violations, and they evidently didn't want them to get to that man. I don't know what the deal was, but the Republicans were none too happy about it, and people's time got cut short. It was just really hurried, and not a lot of things were said. Now, Chuck Grassley had an opening statement, and here is his opening statement on that. And basically, he was talking about why is it there are some times that people like Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS and Sidney Blumenthal didn't have to file FARA registration, but yet, you know, they made Michael Flynn. And Michael Flynn, really the only reason he had to was because he wrote an op-ed. Yeah, an op-ed. Now, this is a very interesting thing here. In 12 years, the department has only sent 178 letters to people it believes should register as a foreign agent. Only 178 letters in 12 years. That's only 15 letters a year. The Justice Department thinks I send more oversight letters than that in a week, and he probably did, too. He probably still does. Only 9 people in the entire Justice Department work full-time to enforce this law and monitor potential unregistered foreign agents in the United States. It's no surprise that only 400 foreign agents are currently registered. Do you get that? 400. That's it. Does anyone here seriously think that only 400 people in the whole United States take foreign money for PR and lobbying work? That seems unlikely. Anyway, so he then goes through, and here's where he gets into it in an April 2015 letter to then Attorney General Holder. I wrote about Sidney Blumenthal's efforts to influence U.S. policy by leveraging his close relationship with Secretary Clinton. As many know, Secretary Clinton used Mr. Blumenthal as an off-the-books intelligence resource while she was Secretary of State. Mr. Blumenthal repeatedly sent Secretary Clinton intelligence memos, and at one point Secretary Clinton told him to, quote, keep them coming. News articles reported that Mr. Blumenthal transmitted documentation to Secretary Clinton on behalf of the Georgian Dream, a political party in the country of Georgia. The Justice Department never explained why it failed to require Mr. Blumenthal and his partner, John Kornblum, to register under FARA. Now, if the Justice Department thought Mr. Blumenthal's activities on behalf of foreign interests did not require registration under the law, it should say so. After all, if he did the right thing by not registering, then to be fair to him, the department should explain why. Well, remember, that was during Obama's administration, so guess who was in charge? Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch, and were they really going to go after him? I think not. Definitely not. It also might help others to understand whether they are supposed to register or not, particularly when the Trump administration has required Lieutenant General Michael Flynn to retroactively register under the law in large part because he wrote an op-ed for The Hill. Indeed, the Trump administration also required Paul Manafort, the Podesta Group, and Mercury LLC to register for their actions on behalf of the Ukrainian government. So, yes, it all does tie back to the Ukraine here, folks. It really does. And there's more about it with the Magnitsky Act and Fusion GPS down here. And at this time, Chuck Grassley was trying to negotiate for Glenn Simpson to come in and to testify. And they were hoping to be able to find out more information because, Glenn Simpson did a lot of work in the Ukraine. Ooh, surprise, surprise. Are we surprised? Not really. And if you go over here, I will put this link down below too. I'm not going to read it because it's 312 pages. But he does mention Ukraine in here and Ukrainian. If you put in Ukraine without the E, then it'll give you the Ukrainian ones too. There's 12 matches. And basically, he was messing around in Ukraine and trying to dig up dirt. He doesn't call it that, of course, but that really is what he was doing. Okay? And if you want to find out more, you might want to watch this video right here. This guy pulled together several clips that kind of give a little bit more information of what was going on at that time. I'll leave the link to that clip down below too. Back to the letter by Grassley. Let me find it here. Got so many tabs open. So here we are. And this was on July 20th that he sent this to Rod Rosenstein. And he says, according to news reports, boy, they do so much with news reports. Isn't it sad that our Congress learns about a lot of things through news reports? I mean, it's kind of weird that that should happen. Don't you think they should know about it before the news outlets do? I would think so. According to news reports, during the 2016 presidential election, Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump, and did so by disseminating documents implicating a top Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter. Ukrainian officials also reportedly helped Clinton allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors. At the center of this plan was Alexandra Chalupa, described by reports as a Ukrainian-American operative who was consulting for the Democratic National Committee and reportedly met with Ukrainian officials during the presidential election for the express purpose of proposing alleged ties between then-candidate Donald Trump, Paul Manafort, and Russia. Politico also reported on a Financial Times story that quoted a Ukrainian legislator, Serhiy Lyshenko, saying that Trump's candidacy caused Kiev's wider political leadership to do something they would never have attempted before, intervene, however indirectly, in a U.S. election. See, this is what Trump is going for, and everybody's known about it since 2017. The thing is, we the people didn't really know it. And granted, yes, this article from Politico did come out in January. It was January 11th, 2017. It's down here as the first footnote. But a lot of people didn't see it. And it was not widely reported, of course, by the press because of obvious reasons. Yeah, they were trying to cover it all up. They didn't want that to be part of it. So anyway, going on, it says, reporting indicates that the Democratic National Committee encouraged Chalupa to interface with Ukrainian embassy staff to, quote, arrange an interview in which Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine at the time, might discuss Manafort's ties to Yanukovych, unquote. Chalupa also met with Valery Chely, Ukrainian's ambassador to the U.S., and Oksana Shulyar, a top aide to the Ukrainian ambassador in March 2016, and shared her alleged concerns about Manafort. Reports state that the purpose of their initial meeting was to, quote, organize a June reception at the embassy to promote Ukraine, unquote. However, another Ukrainian embassy official, Andriy Teleshenko, told Politico that Shulyar instructed him to assist Chalupa with research to connect Trump, Manafort, and the Russians. He reportedly said, quote, they were coordinating an investigation with the Hillary team on Paul Manafort with Alexandra Chalupa, and that, quote, Oksana Shulyar was keeping it all quiet. The embassy worked very closely with Chalupa. Yeah. And again, this is all from that Political article, so that's really where they're getting a lot of this. Chalupa's actions appear to show that she was simultaneously working on behalf of a foreign government, Ukraine, and on behalf of the DNC and Clinton campaign in an effort to influence not only the U.S. voting population, but U.S. government officials. Indeed, Teleshenko recalled that Chalupa told him and Shulyar, if we can get enough information on Paul Manafort or Trump's involvement with Russia, she can get a hearing in Congress by September. Yeah. Later, Chalupa did reportedly meet with staff in the office of Democratic Representative Marcy Kaptur to discuss a congressional investigation. Such a public investigation would not only benefit the Hillary Clinton campaign, but it would benefit the Ukrainian government, which at the time was working against the Trump campaign. When Politico attempted to ask Representative Kaptur's office about the meeting, the office called it a, quote, touchy subject. Aside from the apparent evidence of collusion between the DNC, Clinton campaign, and Ukrainian government, Chalupa's actions implicate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA. As you know, the committee is planning a hearing on FARA enforcement. Given the public reporting of these activities in support of a foreign government, it is imperative that the Justice Department explain why she has not been required to register under FARA. FARA requires individuals to register with the Justice Department if they act, even through an intermediary, quote, as an agent, representative, employee, or servant, unquote, or, quote, in any other capacity, unquote, at the behest of a foreign principal, including a foreign political party, for purposes of engagement with a United States official. The registration applies to anyone who attempts to influence a U.S. government official on behalf of a foreign principal in an effort to, quote, formulate, adopt, or change the domestic or foreign policies of the United States, unquote. As such, the focus of FARA is to require registration for individuals engaged in political or quasi-political activity on behalf of a foreign government. Likewise, an individual whose activities are subject to registration under FARA and who sends informational material, quote, for or in the interest of a foreign principal, unquote, with the intent or belief that such material will be circulated among at least two persons, must transmit the material to the Attorney General no later than 48 hours after actual transmission. Notably, an ongoing failure to register is an ongoing offense. According to documents provided to the committee, the Justice Department required the Podesta Group and Mercury LLC to register under FARA for working on behalf of the Ukrainian government. Their registration was required even though the client, the European Center for the Modern Ukraine, wrote a letter saying it was not directly or indirectly controlled by the Ukrainian government. That did not matter to the Justice Department because their lobbying activity was not to, quote, benefit commercial interests, unquote, of the ECMFU, but instead to promote the, quote, political or public interests of a foreign government or foreign political party, unquote. The Justice Department made clear that an individual acting in the political or public interests of a foreign government must register under FARA. As such, because Podesta and Mercury were effectively working on behalf of the Ukrainian government interests, they were required to register. Now, let's just remember here, folks, that the Podesta Group was run by Tony Podesta, who is the brother of John Podesta, who was running Hillary Clinton's campaign. There you go. It just is like, yeah, these people really should have been registered. Now, I will tell you, after watching the video of the hearing, they had three people speak. One of them was a guy named Hickey, who was from the actual FARA office, the people that deal with that. And then they had Bill Priestap, who was from the FBI, and he looked very nervous throughout it all. But then he has a lot of secrets that he was withholding at the time. And then the third one was Horowitz, the Inspector General for the DOJ. And his report, of course, was, you know, this is how we can improve because there's some problems with this. And they had a lot of people that were not filing because they just didn't want to. Or, you know, you don't know why they didn't, but you know that they weren't filing. And that meant that we didn't have a handle on who these people were, who they were working with for like 20 years. This is not just an Obama thing, folks. This has been going on for a very long time. I don't think they've had any prosecutions because somebody didn't file a registration with the FARA. It's just so very rare for it ever to be brought up and to be prosecuted. This is what makes the whole Mike Flynn thing so much worse, because it was like nobody ever gets caught on this. Nobody ever gets put under the spotlight because of it. But, oh, he wrote an op-ed, so yeah, we got to make him file. Yep, got to do that. So anyway, I wanted to point that out to you about the Podestas because, yeah, they're in on it, and they were working on behalf of Ukrainian government interests right there. Unlike that situation where the Podesta Group and Mercury LLC, now I didn't look up Mercury LLC, sorry about that, I should have, but they're lumped with Podesta Group, so I'm kind of thinking they're along the same lines, worked for the middleman, and that's the EFCMU, and not the Ukrainian government. Here, Chalupa reportedly worked directly with the Ukrainian government officials to benefit Ukraine, lobbying Congress on behalf of Ukraine, and worked to undermine the Trump campaign on behalf of Ukraine and the Clinton campaign. So this was going on, and Grassley knew it at the time back in 2017. Our people have known these things for a very long time. The problem is trying to work through the system. The system is slow, and it's all caught up in a lot of red tape and things that really should not be a matter. And that's something Barr addressed in that speech that I'm going to be doing a video on next, because there's a lot of friction in our government right now. And mainly it's because the Democrats have weaponized our legal system, and they're using our courts, the judiciary branch, to try to block everything Trump is doing. And it's not supposed to be that way. That's not the way it was set up. And again, that's for the next video. But anyway, here are Grassley's wonderful questions. He always has questions, right? So here are the questions he has. He says, accordingly, these facts appear to be exactly the type of activity Congress intended to reach with FARA. Please answer the following. What actions has the Justice Department taken to enforce FARA's requirements regarding Chalupa, given the public reporting of her actions on behalf of the Ukrainian government? Why has the Justice Department not required her to register under FARA? Has the Justice Department sent a letter of inquiry to Chalupa? If so, please provide a copy. If not, why not? Under 28 CFR Section 5.2, any present or prospective agent of a foreign entity may request an advisory opinion from the Justice Department regarding the need to register. Has Chalupa ever requested one in relation to her work on behalf of the Ukrainian government? If so, please provide a copy of the request and opinion. Please differentiate the facts that required the Podesta Group and Mercury LLC to register with Chalupa's. So yeah, what's the difference here? Why did they have to file and Chalupa didn't? But then again, we know where Rod Rosenstein was in all of this, so I'm pretty sure he was probably trying to protect her. So, are you investigating the Ukrainian government's intervention in the 2016 presidential election on behalf of the Clinton campaign? If not, why not? I'm pretty sure that Rod would not have wanted to answer that question. So anyway, he goes on. Are you investigating links and coordination between the Ukrainian government and individuals associated with the campaign of Hillary Clinton or the Democratic National Committee? If not, why not? I anticipate that your written response will be keeping with the classified, separated from the unclassified. As usual, he always puts this at the bottom, and then there's the contact information, and it's signed by Chuck Grassley. Okay, and I noticed he didn't send a copy of it to Dianne Feinstein, who was a ranking member, and still is, actually. Anyway, so this is his letter that he sent, and he was expecting to have the answers to these questions, specifically about Chalupa. Now, in this hearing that they had a few days after he wrote this letter, about 6 days, I think it was, because it was on the 26th. And they couldn't talk about any specific cases because y'all know the DOJ mantra, we can't talk about any ongoing or prospective investigations. And that's what pretty much they kept saying. So they couldn't really talk about it. They couldn't talk about anything specific. They couldn't talk about Chalupa. They couldn't talk about Blumenthal. They couldn't talk about, the Podesta Group or Fusion GPS and Glenn Simpson. Couldn't talk about that. No, couldn't talk about any of these things, which is part of the problem. I mean, I understand that they shouldn't be able to talk about people that have not been proven guilty yet, but it's really hard if they can't even acknowledge that there is an investigation going on. But then again, that could be weaponized. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is on that one, folks, because I think that Congress really needs to have an idea if there is some kind of investigation going on about different people and about different situations. I kind of think there's got to be a way that at least a certain number of people could be made aware of those, even if it's only, like the Gang of Eight or something. But then again, you got people like Adam Schiff on the Gang of Eight, and so that wouldn't do a whole lot of good because he can't keep a secret worth anything. So anyway, these are the questions, and these are important questions to know. Now, what this tells us is that there was an investigation going on. These things, if they were not being investigated at the time this letter was written, they should have been. And this should have kicked off an investigation into Chalupa. What was she doing with the Ukrainians? What was the Podesta group doing with the Ukrainians? What was going on in the Ukraine? Something was happening there. And so pulling Biden out of the hat is not true, because you have all this that was already going on, and it was already very focused on Ukraine. When you read this with Glenn Simpson's interview, his testimony, you will come across the Ukraine. He was messing around in the Ukraine. And I don't think at that time, I don't think he was registered with FARA either. So stuff was really going on over there. It was a hot spot. And the idea that suddenly out of the blue, Trump wants Rudy Giuliani to look at Biden. No, that's not what was going on. Rudy Giuliani was looking into corruption, period. And he was looking into all these people that were targeting Trump. And Grassley lays it out here. He says, look at all of these comments that were being made and the different things happening. And then Chalupa pretty much admitted that's what she was doing, that she was there working with the Ukrainians to dig up dirt on Trump. So this all is part of the Russian narrative, but it really was going on in Ukraine, and we're colluding with the corrupt Ukrainians, because remember, we have a new regime now, so it's a little different. But the people that were colluding with that old regime, it was the DNC. So this is a very important document. They tried to get a lot of documents in, and Schiff didn't want to hear them, because most of the documents they were trying to get in were documents that said, Schiff said we would get to talk to the whistleblower. Schiff said we would get to do that. He would schedule the whistleblower. So anyway, it was just amusing in some ways. It was frustrating in others, because we know that that needs to be done, and the whistleblower should be confronted. Now, hey, I'm all for have that as a closed session. That's fine with me. I have no problems with that being a closed session, because I know those guys will tear into them. But probably they would only release bits and pieces of it. And once again, we'd be in the situation we're in now, where the Republicans couldn't prove how they had pretty much destroyed the testimony, which they've been doing a good job of. I thought with the Maria Yovanovitch one, though, I thought they were a bit flat. I think they're just getting tired of it. And they had hearings again today. I'm recording this on Saturday. They had hearings again today. So it's just, stuff is going on. There are a lot of hearings happening. We're just not aware of them. I saw a schedule that has, 4 of them, I think, scheduled for next week. I don't know. I think it was the Intel Committee YouTube channel, and they had set them up, ahead of time. So it had them all listed there. Lots of them are going to be coming up. So, going to be a rough week. And then, of course, more transcripts were released. I'm so behind in reading transcripts, folks. This is where I really miss that website with, the 17th letter of the alphabet, because what they would do is divvy things up. And they would have several people. So, like, you got this one, you take this one, pages 1 to 50, and you summarize it for us. And you take this one, pages 51 to 100. And that way it all got done really fast, and everybody posted what they were finding. And yes, I have been in there with Tor, but you can't really post with Tor, and it doesn't matter. It's still not up to par, and it's hard to follow. And it seems like the shills are getting in there really well. But it's been heavily under attack, because, wow, he put one out today that was really pretty intense, and was not meant for us. It was meant for the people that are behind all this. And yeah, it was a good one. So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. I wanted to let you know what was going on. I think this document is very important, and I think we need to spread it around and let people know that this has been going on for a while, and there is evidence that this Chalupa was working as an agent of another country. And yet she was also working with the DNC, and they didn't seem to think it was necessary to register her or to let people know that's what she was doing. And that's really the whole reason behind FARA, because people need to know who's behind the information they're getting. They need to know if there's another country that is funding whatever that person is doing. They need to know if there is a country behind that, maybe trying to manipulate what we're perceiving of a situation. And so I wanted to end this with a clip by Ted Cruz, because he gives two really good summaries. He was the very last one to speak in this hearing, and he only got like a couple minutes because Mazie Hirono went on and on and on. Somebody, hey, if you're a researcher, you need to look into her, because there's got to be a reason why that woman has such an axe to grind. Something there. I don't know if it has to do with her being a representative from Hawaii. Is there something going on in her district? Lots of stuff. So that would be something to really look for. And also, I wanted to point out, before I get into the Cruz thing, I wanted to point out that I did see on Twitter that, yes, Maria Yovanovitch seems to have a lot of money. And they're still looking into it, different things. But I think it's a little odd that all these people go into service of our country and they end up getting very rich. Not the way it usually works. But anyway, back to Ted Cruz. Okay, he's got two things. He's going to talk a little bit about the Democratic obstruction that they're doing and the frustration that he had. Like I said, that all of them had that because of the 2-hour rule that was willy-nilly put in there. And then also he's going to talk about some of the FARA issues. I think it's a good way to end this so you can hear what he has to say, so you can get an overview of what really happened in that hearing without having to watch the whole hearing. Okay? So anyway, that's what I've got for you on this one. And I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.
Chairman, let me echo the concerns that a number of folks have raised, that I think it's unfortunate that the Democratic angry resistance has extended to the level of obstructing nominees across the board and now shutting down committee hearings, as this one will be shut down in 2 minutes. I think that is unfortunate. You have senators not willing to do the jobs they were elected to do. In the minute and a half we have, Mr. Horowitz, your office conducted an extensive review of the National Security Division. This included a review of the enforcement of FARA, or perhaps is more accurately described, the non-enforcement of it. In your opinion, is non-enforcement a result of a conscious decision or merely a lack of coordination within the Department of Justice?
Well, what we saw was a lack of coordination, and that concerned us. And the fact that there were a handful of cases over a 50-year period raised concerns for us about what message that was sending to the community out there that should be registering voluntarily.
Now, if it's a lack of coordination, where is the process breaking down?
Well, we saw very different opinions among AUSAs and agents and the NSD over what it meant to handle these cases. And I think, as was just mentioned, the National Security Division, as the attorneys responsible for the regulatory scheme, really has to take the lead on coming up with an enforcement strategy, coordinating with the FBI to move forward to make sure that folks are registering voluntarily, and if not registering voluntarily, that there are cases and investigations that result from that.
Now, the FARA registration unit focuses on voluntary compliance, and yet there are U.S. attorneys' offices that are bringing criminal matters. What explains that differential?
Well, the U.S. attorney's offices are seeing the failures to file, are looking at these cases, and believe there are willful failures to file, and that was, again, a point of dispute. With the oversight that was going on with the National Security Division of those cases, they need to, at the NSD, approve those cases in order for them to be brought. And we heard from AUSA's concerns about that, how that was going on, reviews of evidence, concerns about jury appeal, that prosecutors thought they were in the best position to determine based on their districts and what they knew about their districts. And that was an area of concern for us, that there would be that kind of a dispute between prosecutors in the field and folks at Main Justice.
Thank you, and I think the committee's time has now expired.